Rob Cass here from dopeYEAH Talk. Aldo Meola, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Pleasure.
It was about, how long ago was it since we had you on last? Maybe a year, was it? A bit less, maybe?
A year and a half or something.
A year and a half or so?
Yeah.
You're back out on the road again?
We are.
You played a show last night here in Prague?
We played a show that was wonderful. You know, I had the opportunity to play solo guitar, which is a unique situation. But in this environment, it's perfect, you know.
No percussion player this time?
No.
Just you and
pure solo, which was really the way I had constructed a lot of the new music. It was originally meant to be played solo. And then due to the COVID period extending 4 years, I just, half of it became a much bigger production, because I had all that time,
So that was off the album 24, was it?
Yeah. But it was designed originally as a solo, idea, figuring that whenever we get back to touring, it's going to be very difficult to fly guys from different countries to meet, so I thought I'd be getting a lot of solo work at that time, concerts.
Sure. Well, it's also, cheaper to do it on your own.
Well, yeah, the Tommy Emmanuel School of Touring.
Yeah, we've had Tommy on the show. I mean, Tommy just...
Pay no one.
Yeah, but he fills in all the gaps,
Yeah.
Because when I first saw Tommy, I said, this might be a bit challenging, watching him for like an hour and a half, but he was fantastic.
Yeah, he's got all the shtick going on and everything.
Yeah, he's a showman.
He's a showman, yeah.
But he's a beautiful guy as well.
I know, I love him.
And an amazing
He's a great
history.
player.
Yeah.
And I got to meet him for the first time in January at a George Benson guitar camp in Phoenix. And, he came up to me and says, "Man, I love you, man." He gave me the biggest hug. He goes, "I especially love that Abbey Road record, that tribute you did with the Beatles." I said, "Oh, thank you, man."
When he started out, he was only like a young child, and his mum and dad sold the family house and bought 2 station wagons. And him and his brother and the mum and dad, they travelled around Australia doing shows until...
His brother played too, right?
Yeah.
His brother was even a bigger fan. And they played one of my songs from Elegant Gypsy together. I have a video.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And they used to tour around until the authorities came and said, these kids have got to go to school. But that was his start. I mean, he's had quite an alternative childhood.
He wasn't a school musician, right?
No, he's totally self-taught.
Yeah, he doesn't read, but it's great ear.
But a really lovely guy.
I know.
Sort of this new deck, the clearaudio deck. You've been massively involved in the creation of this.
Yeah, I was involved with the design, of course. I mean, they were thinking of me and what I was initially kind of known for, which was the Black Les Paul. And it started because of my involvement with the High End Audio Society,
right.
which was, they had made me the ambassador that one year, a couple of years ago, in Munich, where all of these different high-end audio companies, whether speakers, phonographs, anything that had to do with high-end audio, even headphones, the unimaginable prices that these kind of audiophiles pay are crazy. This is actually on the lower end of the scale. I mean, there's phonographs going for $250,000, and this one I think is in the range of about $3,000, but it's really cool. I mean, I'm really proud of it. So I was somewhat involved in the design of it for sure. And,
is it based on one of your guitars? Is it based on one of your
Yeah.
guitars?
I was I started in the business playing a Black Les Paul.
Right, of course.
So that became the famous guitar, which kind of launched my whatever,
The one on Elegant Gypsy.
Yeah. It's on Lennon, and it's on Elegant Gypsy. And then the records before it, Return to Forever, as well. And I'm back to playing it again.
The same guitar?
I haven't played it since 1978.
Wow.
It just sat because I had shifted towards acoustic music over the years. And then it got to a point where all these young, gunslingers were coming out. And I said, man, I better get back and remind them. So I went back to playing the early music from my first 3 albums in particular. And so I alternate between my electric band and my acoustic trio or quartet. There's a version of that. 2 different formats of music.
And which
So I
year was
just
that?
finished a West Coast tour with the Electric,
Oh, okay.
going back in time a lot, and with that guitar, heavy as hell,
To do a whole set with, it's quite a heavy guitar.
And
isn't it?
man, there is a difference in those particular Les Pauls from made in that era. It's quite different.
What year was it?
It's
Is
a
it?
71. I have a 59, which is the holy grail, but I don't take it on the road. But the 71 had this, this massive growl, that you can only get from a Paul like that,
What do you think it is about those early ones that sound so great? Is it the wood?
It's definitely the wood. It's definitely the wood. And the pickups, of course. Now, those pickups that were made in that period, I was one of the first guys to use them, with the Marzio Super Distortion, which they later called the Aldi Meola Super Distortion. So I was one of the first guys. Leslie West was another one, and maybe two others. And people tell me, because I was out of the electric realm for so many, I would say decades, and when I mentioned I have, the early DiMarzio pickup, I said, oh, those are the ones to have. In other words, the newer ones, are not quite like that, like the Marshall amps.
Sure.
The Marshall amps from the early to mid 70s are worth a lot of money.
Right.
Like you just can't, especially the 50 watt, not the 100 watt.
Sure.
So I'm finding out that my early gear that was just shoved in the back of a garage is worth, something because of its, the sound that it produced.
So on the electric show, what's your setup?
The setup is I have keyboards, of course, which
And your guitar setup
around
in
like that.
sort of specifically?
Keyboards and the player is he was in my first band in 1978, so we're playing again together for the first time since then.
Wow.
He's from France, Philippe Sace. I have on drums Tommy Berkline, who's really a veteran fusion drummer, who's been in my bands in the 80s, and Gumby Ortiz, percussionist, who's been with me pretty much all the time of 30 years.
He was here last year with you, wasn't he? In the club, yeah. He was great.
He's from the States. And who else? Then on bass, I have someone from Venezuela, who's a kind of a new upcoming guy,
And what about your actual guitar setup? Like what amp? Are you going through a Marshall?
No, going through it's a new amp. I drew a blank on it. It'll come back to me. But it's an amp that's kind of fashioned after, what do you call it? A Dumble.
Sure.
A Dumble. So a Dumble has a really, really, high quality sound. They're very, very expensive amps, But this is what the hell's it called? It'll come to me.
Sure.
Anyway.
And pedals wise? Pedals wise?
Pedals wise, I have I have a really cool pedal setup that was just made for me because I had done a tribute, part of a tribute to this great bass player who just passed away, Anthony Jackson.
You played with Steve Gadd all the time.
And so everybody showed up, all the musicians in the tri-state area and beyond came to this thing. And so I didn't bring any gear, so I just sat in using this gear that this one guitarist had, and I was really impressed with the pedal setup. And I asked them to make it. It's basically, it's just the highest quality United Audio, United Audio products. Very good.
So, what? Reverb pedal, delay pedal, chorus pedal,
Yeah, the standard stuff.
et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, but very high quality. So it's like you can really tell the difference.
And can take a battering as well when you stomp on it.
And a lot of stuff in the years.
It's very sad to hear of Anthony dying because he was like, iconic bass player. So you were close to him over the years. You stayed close over the years, yeah.
Yeah, Anthony was he played a very important role on those early records.
With Steve Gadd playing drums, obviously.
It was the best rhythm section you can get, and they were at the time so busy doing session work. I mean, they do one session was 3 hours. They would do 3 sessions every single day.
Right.
So to get them together, to find a time when they're both off was rare. So since I write music, I was able to score all of those songs, including drum charts.
Sure.
And because I knew I wouldn't have more than a day. And it's exactly what I had. I had 1 day rehearsal and then record. Completely opposite than the London School of Recording.
So they're both readers, so they can read the charts?
They're the best readers.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would they bring to the table? I mean,
They
look,
brought so much to the table that I didn't have to tell them anything.
sure.
That which is really a unique situation, you know. So there are players that will play the chart, and that's cool. It's okay. But what they brought in between the written notes and how they interpreted it was golden. And, you know, I credit them for really being part of what made those records so popular.
So you would give them a bit of license to kind of bring...
I was
Some
young,
ghost
you know.
notes? I don't
was
know.
young. I was a young composer, and I was in awe of them, and I respected them so highly. So I didn't have the massive amount of opinions I have now when I have a band.
Right.
Now I have very specific, you know, directions that I give my musicians. You know.
Because I know that Chick Corea was very particular about how
He
everything...
wasn't. He was. No. He wrote beautiful charts. I hold him in the highest regard as a composer and band leader. But he allowed more freedom than I would with my own band. I think I'm more. I like my music more orchestrated a certain way, you know. And then if the guys do bring something that is cool, I'd be the first to say, "Oh, that was really happening. Keep that in. Do that again," you know. And I like suggestions. You know, they usually don't suggest anything.
Really? They
No.
just read the charts and...
They're petrified of me. I don't know why. They shouldn't be.
So when you were first working with Chick, were you petrified? That's first
Oh,
session?
for sure. Yeah, but he was encouraging. He was cool.
And he wasn't trying to tell you exactly what to play every time?
Whatever he told me, if he did tell me something, I mean, you know, I had a great attitude about it. That's why I was there.
Right.
You know, and he loved the fact that I loved the practice.
Because I read that the previous guitar player, Connors, he kind of said that, you know, he left because he felt he wasn't being allowed to express himself in his solos.
No, not at all.
No, that's not true?
Not at all. He left because of Scientology,
Right.
which was being imposed upon him.
Fair enough.
And I, when I encountered the same, I said, look, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm not going to blow it. You know, God passed me the football. I'm not going to drop this. And it was tough at times.
Right.
But it was the premier group for electric guitar at that time. Because Chick, as great a writer as he was, and he was a big influence,
You sure?
he wrote that music for electric guitar.
Right.
To be the voice, to be the front guy. So I had all the cool lines. The bass player didn't have all the cool lines. I had them. Right. You know, so, and I had the ability to read, or else I wouldn't have been there, you know. So it was a combination of things, and attitude was probably the number one, you know. I would have paid to play with them.
Right,
you know?
sure.
It wasn't like, hey, how much am I getting, you know. No, I was 19. They had just called me out of Berklee School of Music. You know, I had seen the band play when I was a student. And when I saw them the third time, Bill Connors was not in the band. Earl Klug was in the band. Now, Earl Klug is known as an acoustic player. Wonderful guy, wonderful player. But he was standing there with a Les Paul through a Marshall. And I went, what the? That's insane. So I called a friend of mine in New Jersey who was like this Woodstock hippie. And he actually, you know, encouraged me, and he was always like supporting me and stuff. I said, Michael, they got Earl Klug in the band. Man, I wish I had the opportunity someday to play with that group. That's all I said. Well, he happened to have a cassette tape that he made from a reel-to-reel of me playing on New Year's Eve with the Barry Miles Quartet. when I was 17.
Amazing.
And on that night, I mean, he's a Woodstock hippie. He was always high. He handed me this pill. I said, what is that? He goes, it's New Year's Eve. You're going to love it. Well, it was LSD. LSD. And I was tripping so beautifully at the show. It never played better. And that was the tape. He took it upon himself to go in the city, New York City, find Chick, find the management, and hound them to death until they would listen to that tape. They finally did, and that's how I got the call.
Amazing.
So I went home from Berkeley to New Jersey. My parents said, what are you doing out from school? I said, Mom, I'm playing with Chick Corea. She goes, who's Chick Corea? I said, no, Chick Corea. And believe it or not, I'm playing Carnegie Hall on Tuesday night. It's sold out. And my father goes, get the hell out of here. You're not playing Carnegie Hall. What? I said, Dad, this went on for an hour.
Fabulous.
So 2 days of rehearsal went very well because I could read, and they were long charts. So they send the car out to pick me up for the sound check. I take my parents. My father's going, this is a hoax. This is not, come on, where are we really going? I said, Dad, we're going to Carnegie Hall. He goes, but how, you just went to music school. How is this, you're starting at Carnegie Hall. How is this possible? I said, Dad, it's happening. He goes, well, he said, I did tell you growing up how you get to Carnegie Hall. I said, I know, Dad. I know you told me a million times. It's practice, practice, practice. But I'm thinking to myself, no. It's acid, acid, acid. That's how I got to Carnegie Hall. True story.
Amazing. Just to remind you guys to please remember to subscribe and hit that bell button so you don't miss any new episodes. It means a lot to us. Going back before that, you're famous obviously for your picking style, and you listened to bluegrass back in the day, and Doc Watson and Clarence White.
Right.
Did they have was that a big influence on your style, and how did you figure it out?
I don't hear it in my style now, but I was a massive fan of the Byrds. You know, Clarence White, part of the Byrds.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went to see Doc play a bunch of times, not really realizing he was using finger picks, you know. So I tried to do a lot of what he did with a flat pick. And yeah, I had a little romance with country music to the point where I stopped playing guitar. I was playing pedal steel.
Fantastic.
So I don't know what happened, but I just really got into the country rock, Byrds, Burrito Brothers kind of head. It was short-lived, but, you know. And then I discovered Bitches Brew by Miles, and it just went off in another direction. And that was the beginning of jazz rock fusion.
It's a sad ending to Clarence, because he died packing gear into the back of a van and was killed by a drunk driver, apparently. He was packing equipment into the back of a van, and 29 years of age, he died. And what a terrible loss.
Yeah. Well, was it him or his son?
No, I think it was he died.
It was him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that the car backed up and pinned him against the wall.
Killed him.
You know.
So then your great influences, if you sort of go back to Ralph Towner, for instance.
Ralph, I loved Ralph and still love Ralph, like with a passion. Friends in school and myself would just acquire as much Ralph in Oregon, the group that he played with, as possible. And marveled at his 12-string work, because it's really difficult to maneuver on a 12-string in the way that he did.
Sure.
But here's a guy that started playing guitar at 18 years old.
Wow.
And he's brilliant. Not only guitar, but also piano. Brilliant. And composer. So he is for sure one of my big influences, and has been, along with Gismonti, and, you know, and then, of course, starting with Chick. And then in later years, like I would say early 80s, when I discovered the music of Piazzolla and became friends with him, it radically changed my thinking about music and how I would approach composing.
Yeah, because he wasn't a guitar player, was he?
No, it was a Bandonian
Which is like
player that wrote on piano.
It's like a big squeeze box, like an accordion.
It's a squeeze box, it's a deeper and richer sound than an accordion. Accordion is like closer to harmonica, and the Bandonian is a German instrument that was designed to replace a small church organ, but became popular in Argentinian, folklore. And Piazzolla told me the tango, even though it developed in Argentina, it is an Argentinian music. The origins are Napoli, which are where my parents come from. So it was a cool thing to reveal.
And what was it about his style, his kind of whole sound that appealed to you?
Well, he knew how to pull at the heartstrings with the widest range of emotions, from even sometimes aggressive, even violent, to the most sweet and the most melancholy, where you always wound up crying at a show. I mean, not bawling, but just
right.
It brought tears because it did connect to the heart. I said, damn it, that's what I loved about great melody that jazz started getting away from. Jazz started getting more and more into improvisation, fast notes, improv all the time. The composition meant that much. Not when I played with Chick. Chick was a balance of composition and improvisation, which was cool. But as time went on, it got more and more atonal and less to do with that initial thing that I loved about the Beatles, about pop music, good pop music, or great standards that had memorable melodies, And I wanted I found that in Piazzolla's music, melodies that just melt you, And so it became an influence again, And it was never at the expense of the music, so it was always demanding at the same time.
Sure. It's interesting, when I was going through your influences from the last time that we spoke, I kind of went down that rabbit hole. It's like a whole lifetime of work. It's like impossible to even cover it.
Yeah.
But it's been fascinating. But the one thing I sort of came to the conclusion was, you can tell me if I'm wrong, was that all your influences are all anchored in melody. They all have a really huge sense of melody. It wasn't about being the fastest, greatest guy. It was about the guy who was the most melodic. Like this morning, like on your recommendation, I was listening to Father Time. The track Father Time by Ralph Towner. It's a beautiful song. I mean, just gorgeous.
There's so many. There's so many. And
My Foolish Heart.
Yeah. I mean, well, standard.
Yeah.
But, as time went on and has gone on through my development and my evolution, it's become less and less a thing about technical speed, and where you see a lot of young players today, you turn on the phone, there's another young guy that's just mind-blowing technique, but there's no music behind it. They haven't yet discovered composing.
Sure.
And composing is like not the important thing. It's dazzling with great runs. That's cool. But I come from a composition background, and that is, as time went on, that became more and more important, as it is on the record 24. It's a composition record.
Sure.
It's not a Friday night in San Francisco. Sure. That was really a blow fest,
But it is a brilliant record.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
But it wasn't as much about, it was like 80% interplay, great interplay, and great displays of our highest abilities at that point in time, chronologically in our life, to display that kind of technique, because it doesn't last 50 years after the fact, at that degree, So it captured it at a time when we were in our 20s, where we had the greatest ability to display that kind of thing. But as that trio went on, which wasn't that long, but as it went on, the part that frustrated me was there was a lack of emphasis on composition, until we made the reunion album in 1995 at Peter Gabriel's studio.
Real World.
Real World. It was a wonderful experience. We lived there, and we each had our own room. And in fact, we worked in separate studios sometimes to get things just right, and then came together and made a record that had more balance between composition and improv. And I think the record is unknown to more people outside of France, because what they did was they took the colors of Friday Night in San Francisco.
Right.
And people think it's a repackaging. It's a total mistake.
Right.
But actually, it's a phenomenal record.
The Guitar Trio.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing record.
There's no title on it. It's just our names in those same colors, Friday Night in San Francisco. You'd be surprised how many people don't know about it, because they look at it and go, oh, it's Friday Night in San Francisco repackaged, probably.
Amazing. Yeah. And how did you record it? Were you in the same room together?
Well, John wanted to record it all together. Paco refused to record it all together and wanted to... it depends on the track, especially for the solos. We didn't play live like we did on Friday Night in San Francisco. It's one thing when you have an audience and you have... Friday Night in San Francisco, we had 2 months of playing almost every night.
Right.
And what made it really great was no cell phones.
Sure.
None. No computers. They weren't available. So that 5 hours we spend, or whatever, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours in a 24-hour period on a phone, it was that extra time we had to practice in our rooms to prepare for that night.
Sure.
Because we knew it was a healthy competition as well, you know.
But you all came from completely different schools. You came from Latin. Obviously, John was jazz, and then you had flamenco.
I was the link.
Yeah.
Between, my origins was jazz, because that's what my teacher when I was 9, 10 years old, going up, was an old school jazz guy. So I was fed all of these jazz standards and altered chords and substitutions and scales. And in high school, I wasn't accepted, even though I loved the music of that era. I was going to the Fillmore East every week to see whatever rock band, Jethro Tull, whatever it was, The Who. I couldn't play like them. So I wasn't really in local bands because I was playing scales. And rock guys don't play scales.
Sure.
They play pentatonic,
You were playing
which
Phrygian
means
scales, kind of.
they never use their pinky.
Right.
If you watch them, there's one finger they never use, which is frustrating. There's so many more things you can do if you use all your fingers. But if you play pentatonic, and some of them did it great. I mean, Eric Clapton was in his heyday. It's wonderful. I just couldn't play like that. But it became the fact that I could play the way I did. At 19 years old, I got the gig with Chick,
But it's funny how all the metal guys and the rock guys love you.
Yeah, I know. It's
you're a huge influence on all these metal players.
As long as they don't call me a shredder, I don't like that. I think that term is so limiting, because I'm a composer.
Yeah, I think that's...
I mean, that's, playing fast is less, it's not a big focus,
Well, it's all about feel, isn't it? Feeling something. With a lot of these new guys, you don't feel anything when you hear it.
A lot of them are only shredders, and there's not much music to talk about. Now, from our era, if you talk about Chick Corea, or you talk about Joe Zawinul, or any one of the, let's say, heroes of that time, you automatically think of records.
Yeah.
And songs. Not songs, but compositions. It's synonymous, right?
Sure.
Not with young players today. You just some hot young guys, and you talk about their playing, because they're not known for any music yet. But they got to develop and see if that can happen.
So those records with John and Paco, I mean, were they difficult to put together because you were from different schools, like the disciplines, actually doing the arrangements? Was there a lot of serious, challenging debate about how it was going to sound?
Sometimes it was, what made it work, which John couldn't say very much about it. John and I clashed like, bam, a lot. But he knew that Paco wanted me there.
Right.
He knew that.
Because in those records, he's more like in the middle.
Why did he want me there? It's because I had that Latin sensibility of understanding the upbeat and how you play against it. You know?
Those quarter notes.
How you play what we call the syncopation against the quarter beat or the clave, and John comes from a whole different school, more of like an Indian school, which is completely different. But in hindsight, it's really what probably made the trio so unique is that we weren't all coming from a certain style, I mean, I wasn't playing flamenco for sure. Paco was the grandmaster, and still to this day known to be the grandmaster flamenco. And to play with him every night was very inspiring. And when John did his solo, it was very inspiring. It was like, holy shit, how am I going to follow that? But it raised you. It brought you out of your comfort zone every night.
Sure.
Some nights I had an advantage. Some nights John had a little. And then a lot of nights, Paco was like, holy Christ,
The fans must have loved it.
The fans went crazy, and that's why we released Saturday Night in San Francisco. Because I had all of the tapes from the whole 2-month tour. We recorded almost every show with a truck, which Barry Marshall, the impresario from London, put this together. That was his first tour, along with he was working with Lionel Richie, but he had us too. So that was his humble beginning.
Sure.
And very smart of him to record all the shows, almost all the shows. And when we mixed Friday Night in San Francisco, it was in White Plains, New York, which is across the river from where I live. John was living in France, Paco was in Spain. So we had probably 150 boxes of 2-inch reel.
Sure. Wow.
And they asked, what do you do? What are we going to do with all these boxes? And we all looked at one another, and we didn't think about it. I said, well, I live across the river. You can, if you want, you can just bring them over to my studio. So they were behind a wall in my studio for 45 years.
Oh, my God.
And in rough shape, by the way.
Yeah.
And
had to have them baked.
during COVID year, when you had all that extra time with not touring and all, I went through them, and I found a Saturday Night in San Francisco, which hardly anybody knew about, and John forgot about. We had 2 nights at the same theater, and there was other songs that didn't make it on the first record due to time, right? So I had them professionally baked, which is what you have to do to restore the sound, to see if the sound is there actually, and it was up to Friday night. It was that good.
Wow.
And we found a record company, a high-end audio record company, Impex in the States, that wanted to take it up another level. So they sent it to George Lucas's Skywalker studio, which are the #1 studio to restore not only audio but visual tape, and that's what we did. And when you listen to it, when I heard it back, it brought back the excitement of that young 20-something, audience that dominated the seats. And we had mics in the auditorium, so it was like, the excitement was intense. And we had 2 months of shedding in our rooms to get to that point. And it was those last shows that we chose to be the best.
Brilliant. And you've always been in love with the Beatles from the very big, since you were 8 years of age, when your sister, I think, brought Meet the Beatles.
Crazy about the Beatles.
First record.
Still.
And you've done some wonderful arrangements of Beatles songs. And I mean, how do you even start that process? I mean, maybe if you could show us.
There's a fly on my...
Just, if you're a Buddhist now, that's just the soul you've just murdered.
What do they call this, a flywheel?
Getting back to the Beatles, you did these amazing arrangements. How do you start that process? Could you show us even how when you think of a song like, I don't know, I Am the Walrus or whatever, because I think mainly I've read that you mainly chose the songs John took the lead on rather than Paul. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, well, I have to look at the record because I forget. I mean, the first songs I recorded was Because, which is definitely John.
Yeah.
In My Life, John.
Yeah. I Am the Walrus, I think it's
I Am the
John.
Walrus, John, my favorite song.
Yeah.
And then on the second tribute record, I did Strawberry Fields, also John. So Strawberry and I Am the Walrus still remain like my favorite of all of them. But I love Paul. I love Paul a lot.
Amazing.
In fact, recently, this summer, I watched a whole show of Metallica with Paul.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
Incredible. But if you listen to Yesterday, I know it's a song we all know to death, but it's such a beautiful song. And the lyric is just wondrous.
Okay, I did Michelle on the first record. That's Paul. Also great. Yesterday, I did on the second tribute record. And it's one where I thought I could change the harmony a little bit midway through because I don't necessarily like when jazz people change it so drastically that you can't recognize the song.
Yeah.
The melody is the most important thing. So in most cases, the melody remains as they sang it. And what I do under it, whether it's a syncopated arpeggio or whatnot, I mean, it's best to display that kind of thing that I have, let's say, with songs that have beautiful harmonic structure.
Right.
And a lot of them did.
Sure.
A lot of them did. As opposed to, say, Come Together, which is really just boom, boom, boom. There's not a lot to do with that in an acoustic setting. So I chose the songs, Eleanor Rigby or whatever, that had harmonic movement. And I Am the Walrus is chock full of even some some diminished and augmented type of chords where it was there to begin with.
Sure. Could you play us something? You've got the guitar beside you. Would you be interested?
Oh.
Maybe just one thing? It'd be a treat.
Well, what I did was... Okay, you got me off guard. I might need a pick, though.
I have a pick in my pocket.
But my pick.
Maybe it is yours from last night. I just have that.
Guitar show always have a pick in his pocket.
I'm sure they did. And it's not there now.
What I did was
Beautiful.
bring something different to it outside of, the fact that I play a harmony. They never played this. Now, had John invited Paul to sing the harmony, they could have had that harmony, but... wanted to elongate the piece was because the original was only 1 minute, 59 seconds. Can you imagine doing an instrumental like that? So I added a lot to it.
Were you trying to challenging, like, if they were doing an instrumental, how would they do it?
Yeah. Sparse.
Beautiful, fantastic.
And then bridge.
Gorgeous.
That kind of...
You always go back to the melody.
Always. Because it's so great.
And it's kind of respectful to the tune, you know?
Yeah.
The simplicity of it.
Yeah.
And you can take it off in a whole other direction.
And there's a lot more to it that, you know, but that's the general idea of what I would try to do with those pieces, you know.
I mean, I just don't know how your brain works so quickly.
The brain.
Are you good at maths? I know that sounds mad.
I'm very good at math.
Because I was saying to one of the guys today, to Christoph, said, I wonder is he good at maths? Because there's a lot of maths involved in this.
Maps or math?
Math. So it's my Irish accent. We don't pronounce the H's very well.
I'm bad at tying shoes, though, I'll tell you that. New shoes.
So you are good at math. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Brian May, he's a friend of mine as well. He's very good at math as well.
I call up my agent all the time with math shit. I go, hey, wait a minute.
I'm just thinking about...
I had a very serious head injury when I was 7. I was in the hospital for 2 months.
Wow.
And when I came out, I had this unbelievable desire to,
Is that when you got the tinnitus as well? Is it from that?
I was obsessed with the guitar and music.
Right.
And I just had this vision, you know, that I wanted to make it when I'm young. So all I do is practice.
Do you still practice now?
Yeah, I love to practice.
Scales?
Yeah, I mean, to move on a nylon is a lot harder than double as hard as a steel string, without a doubt. So I had to get that transition to happen at some point, you know.
Was it Chick who really got you into the acoustic in a big way when you played with the band? I think he used to get you to do an acoustic thing in the middle of the set.
He wanted to do an acoustic set where everybody does a solo by themselves. So you can imagine my first show at Carnegie Hall. Oh my God. I'm nervous beyond belief. I'm a kid. I'm a baby, you know. And okay, I rehearsed the electric stuff, and he goes, "We're going to do an acoustic set too." And I happen to have an Ovation guitar, like at that time, and You know, so I go out there, you know, frightened to death. And what do? I go,
Allman Brothers?
went fucking crazy.
Is that the Allman Brothers?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I did a little thing off of that, right?
Sure.
But when I did this repeatedly, you know? It's like, I walk off the stage, you grabs, what was that? What did you just play? He couldn't understand why the crowd was going crazy off the da-da-da-da-da-da, and they would play all this great shit. And I said, well, Chick, there's a whole other world out there that you might not know of.
Did he not even
know? He wasn't
know?
a Beatles guy. He wasn't an Allman Brothers guy, you know, at all.
Right.
He was a jazz guy all the way. So he wasn't familiar with any of this stuff.
Amazing. I mean, it's just...
So what I do with like a piece like... Stay true to the melody. You know. And then the other guitar players. Does this thing. So we have, you know, because I'm thinking of performance, and if we don't have the voices, which really, you know, made the song, so you got to bring something else into it.
I noticed your wrist action as well. You hardly move your arm when you're actually playing. It's all in the wrist. Yeah,
if you're picking from the elbow, it usually sounds as bad as it looks. Some guys, they're like, I don't want to lift it too high. But
sure.
You know, they pick like this. This is solid, and it sounds stiff. You know.
Sure.
So, without a drummer, without other guys in the band, you could take the harmonic, arpeggiated approach. You know. You know, it's not so outside that it takes you away. It's chord melody.
Emmanuel ever heard these arrangements? He must be thrilled when he hears them. He must.
The story, I don't know how it should. I've told it so many times that I just assume everybody knows it, but just in case. So I'm at Abbey Road. I got to record 3 pieces, and then the place was so booked and super expensive. I decided I have to go back to New York and finish it. And I could not match, even in the best studios, the sonic quality of Abbey Road. It was just so phenomenal. And by the way, I did an analog 8-track like the Beatles.
Wowza.
And they all looked at me at Abbey Road like I was crazy. I said, why? The Beatles recorded that way. And let's just, at the same time, record Pro Tools and just A-B it. Analog blew it away. But that's because it was 8-track, not 24-track.
Sure.
So there was an improvement in quality. But I couldn't match it in New York no matter what we did. So I knew I had to go back to London. So before going back, I wanted to take the time to arrange the pieces. Because I was in no rush anyway. So at the time, I thought I better get away from my home, because at the time I was going through some stuff. So I rented a house in a place I've always wanted to go for seclusion. And I've always wanted to go to the eastern tip of Long Island, the Hamptons.
Sure.
So I look in the paper. It was right before Labor Day at the end of the summer. And there was this little house. I called the guy up. It wasn't super expensive. And he just said to me, look, I normally don't rent my house. He didn't know who I was. He goes, but I got to warn you that if my wife and I decide to rent it for that duration of time, which is only 5 days, you got to be really cool, because your next door neighbor is kind of a well-known guy in the entertainment field. And I said, oh yeah, no problem, don't worry about it. I'm thinking Bon Jovi, Billy Joel.
Sure.
So he calls back. He says, all right, it's confirmed, you got the house. I said, well, you got to tell me who's my next door neighbor. Can you imagine Paul McCartney? Paul McCartney was my next door neighbor out of the millions of houses in the Hamptons, which is vast.
Sure.
There is a God. So it was always a dream of mine to meet Paul. So I was hoping he was there, of course.
Sure.
I put in the GPS. And as I'm pulling up, he was outside in his driveway. My driveway, his driveway basically touched one another. I said, holy Christ, surreal beyond everything. And yeah, we did talk and meet and everything. And I never told him who I was.
Really?
No. I never told him who I was out of the fear of embarrassment. If he didn't know, I would have felt like, oh, shoot. It would have been better if he was with somebody.
Sure.
And that somebody says, Paul, that's Al, the guitar player, Al Meola. That would have been a better way, right? But if he goes, oh, hi, I would have been, oh, okay, I'm just.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So that next year, I'll just make it short. The next year, the same time, he's always there at the end of August, I rented the house again, right? And this time, I had a finished packaged CD of that Abbey Road record, And my wife, who was at the time more like my fiance, said, you know what you got to do? You got to write Paul a couple of paragraphs of what the Beatles meant to you growing up as a child. And I said, great idea, and stick it in the CD. So she had a film of me doing it, and I stuck the letter in there. So all of a sudden, he pulls in his driveway, which is right there, in his old brown Rolls Royce. And she goes, now go over there and run over there and give him the CD. And I go, oh, no. She goes, give me that thing. And she grabs it and she runs over there. And I swear to God, I was watching her. I said, I'm going to marry that girl. That was so cool, the gesture. And we don't know if he really heard it or not. We just don't know. And now I saw him this summer, and he greeted me like he knew me. He said, "Hey, Paul, hey," hug, everything. And it was so loud in this tent because it was a big celebrity event where Metallica was getting their own radio channel on Sirius FM. And so everybody was there, a lot of Howard Stern, Michael J. Fox, Sylvester Stallone, I mean, name after name, were there because the Hamptons are a happening place in the summer. So, yeah. So we stood next to one another, like, and I'm thinking, he's going to leave after the first song because it's the deafening volume was incredible. I said, when he leaves, I'll leave. He didn't leave. He stayed the whole thing. And at one point, he takes his phone out and he's going like this. He's filming, and I'm looking at him, going, he's actually going to go home and watch this. I mean, this is Paul McCartney, the greatest writer in the history of music. I was flabbergasted. But I did get a few words in because, I mean, people coming up to him and everything. Even though I was standing next to him, you had so many people there, and the volume was nonstop at one level. You know, there was no such thing as dynamics. But I got one moment where I could say, Paul, let me ask you, Jeff, do you know my music at all? He goes just like this. I must have. I'll never forget it, which means you'll never know. But I do know from my recording engineer that he stepped in a room at a studio where he was mixing my record. My engineer was mixing one of my records, and Paul stuck his head in and he goes, "Oh, man, what is that?" He goes, "I'm mixing Al Di Meola." He goes, "Oh, I know Al Di Meola." You know, so who knows? Yeah. The thing is, it was very important for me because I did get to introduce Paul to my daughters who were with me and my wife, Stephanie. And he was very gracious, and it was...
He's a lovely guy. I'm not bragging here, but I've actually had lunch with him. And because when I was at Abbey Road for 10 years, I used to see him coming in and out all the time. I was, the in-house producer there. Yeah. And funny enough, does he like talking about the Beatles? He loves talking about the Beatles. Yeah. I thought, maybe he just doesn't, but he actually really remembers that time very fondly.
It's the only other word I got in at this concert talking about the Beatles was, I said, "Hey, Paul, I wish they'd play Helter Skelter." And he looked at me and he goes, he nodded, he smiled, Because I didn't know Metallica's music at all, so I wasn't really that diehard fan that were there.
Sure. I mean, he's a very normal guy. He comes into Abbey Road, he comes in the back way, he doesn't have any security, he just walks around.
Yeah, no security at his house in the Hamptons. Totally open driveway, no gate. That's the thing about the Hamptons, there's no paparazzi out there.
Yeah.
But somewhat easy to find his address if people looked. And should he be concerned? Well,
Yeah.
He's not the type to talk about how much he hates Trump like I would.
Right.
So he doesn't have to worry about crazies.
Yeah, sure.
As much.
He's as nice as you'd hope he'd be. He's definitely not of that school, don't meet your heroes, because when you meet, he is actually a really lovely guy.
Yeah.
And everybody that meets him like this.
He wants to be like.
He's pretty engaged, he's with the world.
He's approachable. Just don't ask him if he doesn't know you for a picture.
Yeah, he doesn't like pictures.
Well, once you do it and there's like 5 other people around, he's like, "Oh, can I have one too?" Then it's like, it multiplies. So you can understand it to a degree, right? So I had a friend of mine who's also a Beatles fanatic to the hilt. And I said, "Jeff, if you come over the house and you happen to see Paul, do not run down there when he's pulling out of the driveway and ask him for his picture. Please, don't screw it up." So Paul pulls out of the driveway, and my friend Jeff runs down, and I run after him, worried that he's going to do that anyway. And he starts talking to Paul. Paul was very gracious, shook our hands, and he was like dominating the conversation with Paul about all these different things about the Beatles, and then goes, Paul, you mind if we take a picture? And then Paul goes, no, I'm running right now. I gotta go. Bye. I said, why did you do that? I told you, don't do that. Yeah. Anyway.
And they don't like autographs either. Ringo either. He doesn't like to do autographs anymore. They don't really like signing autographs. People, sort of sell them on eBay and all kinds of things, but they kind of copped on everyone.
I'm nowhere near the level of popularity of the Beatles, and I take pictures and I sign whatever, because that's what people are going to remember, is he's either a nice guy or he comes off like, you know. And if you shush people away when they want an autograph, or no, you know, they may remember that as like, yeah, he was, you met Ringo, oh, how was, he was a little, you know.
Getting back to you.
I don't want that to happen to me.
Getting back to you, how has your relationship with the guitar and your music changed since you started out?
Well, more and more focus on composition, and consuming all of the ingredients of inspiration from people like, Piazzolla, and to this day, the Beatles or Ralph Tanner or Roberto Gismonti are standouts in this whole thing. But it's certainly not speed demon guitar players or anything like that. It's what the audience wants. You can't hold the audience all night with playing rapid fire, unbelievable technical things. And it doesn't thrill me like at the period of the Guitar Trio. It's composition. Sure. That's what holds the people. And rhythm. That's what first pulls them in. A syncopated rhythm that's really cool, and we work on that, within, whether it's a trio or quartet. And it's worked out. It's not like random, stuff.
Before we continue, you probably already noticed something special sitting here with us. As we mentioned earlier in the conversation, Aldo Meola teamed up with clearaudio for a unique collaboration, the celebrity Aldo Meola Edition turntable. This is where high-end audio engineering meets pure artistic identity, designed in the shape of his iconic Gibson Les Paul. It's not just visually striking, it's a true reflection of the connection between music and craftsmanship. clearaudio has been building world-class audio equipment in Germany since 1978, and everything they do is driven by precision, passion, and a relentless pursuit of analog perfection. This edition is limited to just 1,000 pieces and comes with a numbered special release album by Aldo Meola and a guitar pick, making it a true collector's item. If you care about sound design and the experience of music, this is another level. Check the link in the description to find out more. It's interesting because, going back to the composition thing and the melody, and that's very big part of what you do. But for instance, my wife, she's not into jazz, and she's like the jazz police. Anytime I put jazz on, she's like, "Oh, don't put jazz on."
Yeah.
And then I mentioned you. This is a funny story. It's kind of Irish humor, but I said to her, "So I'm gonna, kind of ask Al a few questions. Would you like to ask him a question?" He's like, "What would you ask him?" He said, "Please don't play."
Yeah.
Because she doesn't understand jazz music.
No, but I understand her.
Because she's just like, it's all too busy for me. I can't cope with it.
Right. But not if it's the composition.
Yeah.
So, okay, I got my early years with Chick, and there was great compositional aspects to what he was presenting. But meeting Piazzolla, and then realizing that was the beginning of the 80s, and really learning about how that music had such a wide range of emotions that it touched. And then I said, yeah, but the Beatles had these melodies that you can sing at the drop of a hat, any one of them.
Yeah.
And that's so much more important than super complexity all the time. It just is. It's more redeeming. It's more, so it all came together. And even in Tanner's music, there's and Piazzolla's music, there's no foregoing of complexity at the expense of melodies to go right to your heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for introducing me to those artists, because it really, when I did a deep dive into it, I say to people, just check them out, those guys, because they are incredible. And honestly, at the time, I didn't know them. And, once you started introducing me to that, I was like, wow, this is a whole other world, nearly otherworldly, in the kind of complexity, but at the same time, the simplicity is kind of a contradiction nearly.
There's nothing more effective than a simplicity that is aesthetic.
Right.
There's nothing greater. It goes right to the heart. And as though it's sometimes a fine line between it being, shallow, and then it crosses over into like, wow, that went right to my heart. You can cry. So you just have to have the ears, and you have to have I don't know.
Are you still searching for patterns?
Patterns?
Yeah, I mean, when you different ways of working out where you're going to get on the guitar.
I'm always searching. It's like, you need one lifetime is not enough. It's just not, with that instrument or any. I mean, if a musician says anything in regards to, I know everything that I need to know, well, he's not telling the truth. There's just so much more that you can research and find. And if you sit with your instrument, Keith Jarrett, who's probably the greatest improviser on the planet, people like him and Gonzalo Rubalcaba are just, you think there's no more, that the language is so vast, but there's so much more, no matter who you are.
When I was listening to all your influences, though, I'll be honest, I couldn't really hear it in your playing.
The second guy that said that, first guy was Stanley Clarke. Stanley Clarke, the great bass player that played with us with, the Return to Forever with Chick Corea. In fact, we did the Old Grey Whistle test. I don't know if you know that. He said that same thing. He goes, well, when I listen to Al, I can't hear who his influences were. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, you're completely
But I liked
unique.
it in a way.
Yeah, there's nobody
Like you don't
like
hear the Hendrix thing, even though I loved Hendrix. You don't hear the Clapton thing. You don't hear the jazz thing that you could say, oh, he sounds like Joe Pass. Oh yeah, or he sounds like no. It's hard to pigeonhole me, and that's fine.
I think that's pretty unique. I don't know any other guitar player in the world I can think of where you can't kind of nail down at least a few influences that you can hear, like whether it's the blues or whatever.
Right.
And you're not really a fan of the blues per se, is that fair to say?
I can't stand the blues. I mean, we all started with the blues, but I'm just not a blues. Latin music is like the opposite of blues, right?
Sure.
Like Latin music is up, blues is down, and I just tended to go this way. That's all. But we all started with playing, the 1-4-5 blues type of thing,
So when you were a kid, though, you went to a lot of Latin clubs, didn't you, in New York?
I did. I went on my own I was underage, and I used to sneak in. And I remember going up the stairs in a place called the Corso. It was called the Corso on 80-something Street, and it had all the big Latin bands. And just took in, at 16 years old, I took in the rhythms and everything, and I spent most of my high school years, not paying attention as much as I should, but always on the desktop. So if this was the desktop, I was constantly with my foot like this.
Rudiments kind of thing.
All day. And the trick is not to let the rhythms that you play up here
Affect the ones down there.
affect the time down there, which is most people's issue, especially guitar players. So when you play syncopated rhythms up top, I watch the foot go up, skip, and that's bad.
So you need a rhythm section that really understands time.
Yeah. And it's not something you can learn. You can try to find out if you have it, but you either have it
or you don't.
or you don't.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mentioned that to guys that come from countries where it's pretty much across the boards like Cuba. And I talked to Gonzalo Robocami. He goes, "You're exactly right." Yeah, Chick had it. Chick had it. Steve Gadd had it. Not everybody has it. What I'm talking about, playing against the time, playing against the clave.
I would say, actually, when you had Steve Gadd and Anthony Jackson on you, I think they are probably one of the finest rhythm sections in the history of music.
Oh, man.
Honestly, if you listen to the records they've been on together, just phenomenal.
Every basic track was phenomenal. Even though those early records, we all played together.
Sure.
But my God, I rehearsed my band forever, and it's painstaking. These guys, you just put a chart in front of them. You might have one day, if you're lucky, and then there's the record.
Wow.
And it's mind-blowing. And what I liked about Anthony in those days, he was playing the 4-string.
He plays 6-string as well, doesn't he?
Now, the 6-string, if I played those records that he played on, you cannot hear through that iPhone speaker.
Just it won't go down.
Any note. But his sound was the 4-string through a flanger. That Fender through the flanger was his signature sound that he gave up because he wanted a wider range. And nobody could forget about trying to talk him into going back to the 4-string. What you would hear is click, the phone,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was like...
I read that he said once that Leo Fender came up with the 4-string because he was basing it on an upright bass. So you couldn't have a 6-string. That's the only reason he did it. He said, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't have 6 strings. It's more range. And
Yeah, but what you had was more mass. The notes were giant. There was certainly enough of bass with the 4-string. and when, since I write counterpoint bass lines, I want to hear the lines. So when you listen to Land and Midnight Sun, even if I play those on my phone, you would actually hear every bass note coming through that little speaker.
Wow.
That's great. So you're hearing counterpoint plus all the original things that he would add to it. Beautiful. And then when we did a record called Flesh on Flesh, which was probably the 8th record in or something like that, he had the contrabass. You can't hear any of the counterpoint lines. It's not a matter of mixing him louder. You couldn't hear it, but you felt mass, and he was extremely happy about that. But I can't hear what I wrote.
Right, exactly.
And there was no way to talk to him about it. And with a pick, you get even a little bit more articulation factor than you would with the Flesh.
I see.
I'm sorry, but that's why I picked him.
Sure, of course.
I picked him because he had that plectrum technique down pat.
And as far as the charts are concerned, is it true that, because I've read about Steve Gadd, and he prefers to get the bass part rather than...
Yeah, I would have the drum charts. He goes, no, I prefer to have the bass charts. And so he would...
kind of makes sense, I suppose.
It does. It made more sense. Well, I wrote out the drum charts because that's how Chick would always do it for whatever band. Lenny White wasn't a reader, by the way, but he would write them out anyway. But Steve, he wanted the bass charts, and he would tape them under the cymbal stand. So if it was like a 6-page chart or whatever, he had them spread out under the cymbals.
Everywhere.
And the feel was sick. It was so great.
So you must have been very excited when you were doing those first albums and hearing the rhythm section.
The first album, I just didn't, I was a baby. I mean, I didn't know. I was pushed to do a record. I didn't know if I could do any of this, write music or anything. So I was still living with my parents and trying to put together pieces.
And Chick was on that first record as well, wasn't he?
You know who I had in that record? Everybody.
Yeah.
Chick, Jan Hammer, I had Barry Miles, I had Jaco Pastorius, the first
My God.
recording he's ever made in a studio. He's never been recorded before that. Anthony Jackson, Stanley Clarke.
Land of the Midnight Sun.
And I had, of course, Steve Gadd. I had Lenny White, and I had Alphonse Mouzon. So it was chock full of the top on the first record. And then on the second record, I had pretty much a lot of those guys plus Paco de Lucía.
Because I think Stephen and Anthony played more on the second record, didn't they? On Elegant Gypsy.
Yeah.
Than they did on the first one.
Yeah. And Lenny on a couple of tracks.
But it must have been.
But Anthony on all the tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And then there was records after the Casino.
Yeah.
Was only Steve and Anthony. And then it was, I forget, Splendido Hotel. So now there's an example of where I would have went wrong had I done that on the first record. I used my band. And what happened was I didn't like the basic tracks. They weren't experienced studio guys. Experienced studio guys know how to get a great sound as well. It's not just playing. So I had inexperienced studio guys that I wound up not knocked out. So what I did, I overcompensated with overdubs. So much. It was like this weak foundation of a building, and I just put too many floors on. And in the end, I wasn't happy, so I redid them.
So the basic tracks, were they done everybody together in the room and then you overdubbed afterwards?
Some, yes.
And just going back to...
This is Splendid Hotel, right?
Right.
So that was a painful record to make because I went against my better instinct, which was you got to get the best guys.
Right.
I tried it with my band, and no, you got to use records that you can listen to 50 years later and go, wow. And that's what I could do when I listen to, that dream team,
The dream, it's always about that, isn't it?
And even Jan Hammer, I was like, wow, killer.
It must have been just surreal.
Yeah.
Surrounded by that, like some of the
And then we did Electric
players.
Rendezvous again with Steve and Anthony, and it's just, it's going to be. See, they're going to bring to the table something that you never thought of. Now, it was Steve Gadd's idea, and boy, I'm glad I listened to him. We did a version of Chick Corea's piece, Senor Mouse, which is one of my favorite pieces of the Chick years. And I always wanted to do my own version of it. Now, the version that RTF did, before I was in the band, they did it at breakneck tempo. Like, it's so chaotic. It's exciting, but, try to find any girl on the planet that's going to sit through that. Forget about it. It's like a lot of jazz. They just can't handle that much energy.
It's definitely my wife.
So Steve comes in and says, "Oh man, we should take it down." I said, "What do you mean take it down?" He says, "We should be like." It's Steve's groove at that tempo.
Yeah.
He can make it swing and just, he was right. Because it's a beautiful melody. You can take more in rather than, everybody's like, Stanley hated that piece. Stanley didn't play on my version, but he played in the original. And his bass part was through the whole song. And I remember when we did a reunion tour in 2008, he refused with Chick to do the song because all he did was and I had the cool part.
Legend has it they mixed you down on that record. Is that true?
They mixed me down terribly on all those records, which is why when I did my own records, I put the electric guitar so loud, maybe too loud, right. Especially I landed in my Midnight Sun, because they weren't hip to how rock records were made. Sure. Rock records, electric guitar was in the forefront, where it should be.
You did some rock stuff as well. You put that band, you were in that band Go with
right.
Steve Winwood. That was quite different for you, direction-wise?
I was asked to participate on that record they were making, as a guest artist, I guess. And I was like, wow, Michael Shreve. I love Michael. Oh my God, from the Santana Day. I used to go see Santana when I was a teenager. I don't know how many times at the Fillmore East. And Stevie Winwood as part of Traffic. Big fan. In fact, we had a garage band only a year two before that. Before I joined Return to Forever, we were always playing Dear Mr. Fantasy.
Sure.
So to this day, I love this voice. Incredible. So the opportunity, and I knew of Stone Moo, because we, my schoolmates at Berkeley, we were checking out his records, and I was like, oh my God, sure, I'm flying over. So I remember, I'll never forget walking into Island Studios, and Stevie was in the record room singing.
Sure.
And I got chills, man. I was in the control room looking through the window, and oh my God, there he is, wow. It was great. And so I remember, sort of vaguely, I don't remember if I went back to the States first and went back, or it was part of the same time period. But we then eventually wound up in a rehearsal because we were going to do, they were going to do a tour, and I was part of 2 shows. I could only do 2 shows because I had an Elegant Gypsy tour, promotion tour that I had to go back to. So we went to do rehearsal for Royal Albert Hall, which was a hell of a thing. It was my second time playing there because, what was the first? First. And I later played with the guitar trio there. And I remember the rehearsals were quite chaotic. Everybody was running to the bathroom.
Wonder why.
I was so naive, and I couldn't figure out what the hell is everybody doing going to the bathroom, right? So I wound up actually taking over as kind of musical director.
Right.
Because nobody was getting their act together.
You were the only one doing any work.
This is what I remember, but we're talking 50 years ago, right? But somehow, miraculously, the show came off great. And I was in awe of, like, the laser lights and the ballerina, I think they had ballet there and going with the music. And then the second show was at the Palais de Sport, a 6,000-seater in Paris, sold out.
Sure.
And they recorded it, and it became an album. It was called Go Live, and it's pretty damn good.
Right.
Considering it's only the second show in,
And did you stay friends with Steve Winwood after that? Did you stay friends with Steve?
I had not stayed friends. He was a very nice guy, just super. I think he was going through a divorce or something, but he was very mellow, very, very, to me, he was very, very nice. I think he's just normally very, super easygoing guy. So I hadn't seen Steve 20, 25 years, right? You never believe this story. So I'm in a restaurant in Soho in New York. It was actually Robert De Niro's restaurant. And I'm with my the mother of my first daughter, and we're sitting there having dinner, and I look across the room, and I said, her name was Tony. I said, Tony, that looks like Stevie Winwood over there. And I kept looking, and 12 times, 10 times, I don't know what it was, I kept saying, that's got to be Stevie Winwood. Man. And so after about, I don't know, half an hour, I said, you know what, I'm just gonna get up and go over. So, I'll make believe I'm going to the bathroom. I get up, I go around, come back to the table. I said, it wasn't Stevie Winwood. Oh, man, I thought for sure that was Stevie Winwood. So, 10 minutes after that, through the door, walks Stevie Winwood.
Oh, that's wild.
Can you imagine that?
That is wild.
In New York. Lived in London at the time. I mean, since then, he moved to Nashville, but he met a girl. But the whole night I had Stevie Winwood on my mind, and it wasn't the guy who I thought it was. And then he walks in through the front door opens, and there he is.
Amazing.
Anyway, I haven't really, and then we wound up sitting together, and it was very nice. And he wound up getting a ride with us back to the hotel uptown. And I hadn't connected with him since then, but I think about him a lot, and I think how I'd love to do something with him again.
I think he'd be
His
terrific
voice is
together.
incredible.
Yeah.
What he did with Blind Faith and Traffic is just, can't find my way home.
Yeah, just beauty.
Jeez. And even when he was it 16, when he made I'm a Man? Put that on now. It's great.
Yeah, still sounds amazing.
The music of the 60s was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a golden era.
Golden.
Yeah, no, I agreed. Do you ever listen back to your albums and think you would do things differently now if you were doing those same albums?
Probably, but I'm pretty much proud of a lot of what I've done. I had this kind of way of recording that and yes, we had way bigger budgets back in the day when there were record stores.
Sure.
The glory days of the record industry. Gone. Now, gone. But then I would record until I felt like I want to hear this over and over again. The way that I knew I didn't have it was I don't want to hear it.
Right. Once you've done it, you didn't want to hear it again.
I'm done with that. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Sure.
That's when you know you don't have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are a lot of artists that were like that. That Paco always said, I don't want to hear it again. Yeah. It bothered him because he didn't get it yet. So I would make sure that, for the most part.
Have you ever thought about doing Dolby Atmos mixes of your own material? Because I think, listening to other interviews where you talked where you love hard panning, putting places in instruments in very specific places.
Yeah.
And like Dolby Atmos is brilliant for that because it's like sound is an object.
It was like the more advanced version of quad.
Yeah, exactly.
When quad came out, it didn't last very long, which is surprising because it was, if you ever sat in the middle of a room and you listened to a quad recording, it was like mind-blowing. Mind-blowing, but it never became an industry standard for the public for reasons I'm not sure why.
Well, I think the reason why Dolby is working is because you can listen to Dolby on headphones.
Yeah.
You don't need to have 4 speakers. So.
Right. Well, they tried to do an up or an down.
Yeah.
There's something here, and then I noticed something there.
I mean, it's faking the brain. I mean, it's. But I think
even live, I never understood why, we don't go to concerts and have a speaker over here in the back, and a speaker over there in the back, and 2 up front. So you have that
surround,
so
immersive experience.
Never really. Well, some people have done it, but it's rare.
So have you thought about it? Maybe doing it?
I thought about it, but it's if the record company wants it, for sure, we do it.
Because I think they would sound terrific, your records, in Dolby.
I've heard a couple of them with the 5.1 or something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I heard a couple of that, and I said, "Oh my God, I never want to hear another record another way." It was so cool. But I think there's an expense involved, and record companies are looking at like how many can they sell versus what they're going to have to pay to make it.
Yeah, I know some people like they could get it done at a very reasonable price. It's not as expensive as it used to be. There's a lot of people doing it, but I think with your kind of material,
well, my label, I will bring it up to them and just
I would
say, hey, you could re-release a record with the whole new
Dolby Atmos mixes. Yeah. And even with Apple, for instance, if you've got a Dolby, if you're releasing a new album, if you want to go on the front page of Apple, you have to have Dolby Atmos mixes.
They have to be into it,
Yeah,
if the record company's into it, say, wow, we should do that. And then, okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think the kind of material you arrange, I think it's perfect. It's just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I mix like George Martin.
All right.
I always loved hearing Ringo on one side. Think about it.
Sure.
I always loved hearing the cellos coming out of one speaker with no reverb bleed over to the other one. Or John singing out of just one.
Right.
It was phenomenal. I love it. But I also had another reason why I like the drums pretty much one side, because I had percussion that was playing a different pattern. And
on either side.
If you didn't put it on the other side, or let's say you mishmashed it together, too confusing. So it has to be where, when you're listening, you have separation, you know. Or if there's two guitar parts, maybe you have an arpeggiated rhythm part, and then you have a melody part. You got to have space, because you put them together, not as effective.
I got some questions from some of my guitar playing friends, my buddies. Oh, actually, funny enough, a dear friend of mine is Paul Linder, who's Lemmy's son. And he's an amazing guitar player, fantastic producer in his own right. And I just texted him, so I'm going to be speaking about Al. I said, oh my God, I'll just tell you what he said. Well, he said, when you performed The Romantic Warrior with Chick Corea, Return to Forever, obviously, how many times did you guys rehearse it before it was recorded?
Oh. Very good question, and I do know the answer. We rehearsed in a basement of the house that Chick was renting in Long Island for a few days. And then we went to a club in Denver and rehearsed during the day and played at night to break it in. For about 5 days or whatever.
Sure.
And then we went up to the studio, which was in the mountains, Colorado Rocky Mountains, and above Boulder, way at the top. And there was this beautiful ranch owned by Jim Garcia, the producer of the group Chicago, called Caribou Ranch. And that's where we recorded with an English engineer who was a protege of Ken Scott. His name was Dennis McKay.
Sure.
And it was phenomenal because we got that big sound that English engineers like to get.
Well, Paul said to me it's his favourite guitar solo of all time. And he says at the end, he just said, please tell Al he touched my life and influenced me in a huge way.
Yeah, we put the Marshall bottom in an elevator shaft that was constructed of only wood.
Oh, okay.
And got this great sound. Yeah, and what happened was Chick Corea himself was not. He was not the type of guy that liked to spend more than a couple of days in the studio. He really comes from a bebop recording experience and doesn't have the tolerance to stay in the studio very long. So he was very frustrated to spend too much time, and eventually left after all the basic tracks, which we played all together, but still he wasn't into tweaking, and I was the one, and maybe Lenny to a degree,
sure,
but mainly me, that guys, I said, we just signed with Columbia Records, a multi-million-dollar deal. We have a budget. We could spend more than 2 days to make it right, Guys, listen to the production of the group Yes. Listen to the production of Genesis. Listen,
sure.
I had to hip them to, there's so much more we could do with electronic instruments, especially keyboards.
Sure.
To sweeten and make it more of a production, right? So we took a grand 2 weeks to make the record.
Wow.
Which, when you look at British bands, they would take it 1 year, maybe a month on a snare drum sound or something. That's what Trevor Horn told me.
A week on just a hi-hat.
Yeah. And even Steely Dan would take forever to get just a drum sound.
Actually, a friend of mine was working with Trevor Horn, and his job was for one track, was just to program the hi-hat. Yeah. That was his sole job.
Yeah, super time-consuming, end result phenomenal.
But they do sound amazing, those records.
Huh?
They do sound amazing, those Trevor Horn
unbelievable.
records. The seal stuff.
No,
and,
okay, so there's a regret. I wish we had spent more time. I mean, those first 2 albums I was involved with, the sound is goddamn awful. Awful. The songs were cool. I mean, the Chick songs were really cool. But you can't make an album in 2 days.
No, you can't.
And we spent 2 days from start to finish. And I never had time to try this amp, try that amp, and get a good sound. It was like, roll. And that was it.
Yeah.
Next room, John Lennon.
And how long was John spending on this album?
19 years old. And oh, my God.
John was next door.
John was next door. So I was playing ping pong with Julian when he was 10 years old.
What record was he working on, John, at the time? Do you know?
Walls and Bridges.
Who was producing on that? Do you know? Who was producing on that record? I can't remember.
Bob Ezrin or...
Not Jimmy Iovine, no.
Who?
Jimmy Iovine, no.
Jimmy Iovine was the T-boy in Record Plant. That's the guy who ran out to get you coffee or tea. That's all he was then.
Wow.
Then he graduated to, he was doing some assistant engineering, I think he was our assistant engineer as well. And then he moved up to main engineer. Then he moved way the F up. It is a billionaire.
Well, apparently the story is that when he was working in that studio, it was Easter time, and he was told, we want you to come in at Easter. And he was like, oh, like my family having a lot of, sort of family stuff at Easter. He said, like, well, we'd really need you to come in. And he decided, they wouldn't say who the artist was, but he said, look, it's someone important. And then he decided he'd go in, and it was actually John Lennon.
Yeah, well,
and if he hadn't have gone in for those sessions, he wouldn't have got that.
I think I joined the band, it was in July. Yeah. So the first show was at Carnegie Hall, July 3rd, 74. And we went on the road for a month to break in. At that time, we broke the Where Have I Known You Before, first record I was involved with. We broke that in on tour, not actual rehearsal so much. So we did a month of touring, then went in the studio, and it took 2 days.
Wow.
Start to finish, including mix.
Did you ever get to sit in on anything that he was doing? Did you get to sort of sneak in the room afterwards and have a listen to what John was doing?
The door would open so much, and I was in the lobby, and so the door was like there. Door would open, and he was sitting a little bit further than where you're sitting. Let's say another 5 feet back, and I was like, oh my God, John Lennon, man. So I didn't have the balls to walk in or sit.
It's just too much.
I mean, I certainly would at this point. If he were alive, I wouldn't have any qualms about it. But then I was just a babe in the woods.
Yeah, I've had that experience.
I was just so lucky to be there.
Yeah.
And just wow, this is surreal. Everything.
I was younger, I toured with Thin Lizzy, and I was too proud to get photographs with, I knew Phil Lynott really well, the singer, writer, bass player, and I was just too proud to kind of get my photograph with him, and I just wish I had now, looking back, I have no photographs with Phil. I toured with him for like a month. It was like, why didn't I just get a photo? Because I'm too cool to go on, come on, Phil, now I'd be up in a shot,
Yeah, sure.
Come on, Phil, give us a photograph.
Sure.
But I have another question as well from a friend of mine, Dean Ross, brilliant keyboard player. This is more about Chick, and he said, when he first heard Chick's mini moog soloing on Romantic Warrior, it blew his mind. It seemed otherworldly. How did it make you feel after hearing how a keyboard instrument could pitch bend for the first time?
Yeah, I hated it.
Did you?
Yeah.
There you go, Dean.
Chick had the worst mini moog sound of anyone playing the mini moog. Chick, for some reason, never moved beyond that flute sound. that whistle sound.
Right, sure.
And the bending and all. I mean, it was unique at the time that a keyboard guy can do that.
Yeah, could bend and all, yeah.
But you couldn't compare it to Jan Hammer's Moog sound, which was killer.
Right.
Jan had the killer Moog sound. In fact, when Jan recorded with me at Caribou Studios, years later in 1982, it was basically me and Jan. Phil Collins was part of the record, Bill Bruford, Tony Levin.
Brilliant.
But mostly me and Jan. Okay, so Jan was the Moog guy.
Sure.
Okay. And I said to Jan, Jan, you got to try out the Fairlight synthesizer. He goes, oh, no. Jan he's from here, by the way. He was very adamant, very like, no. I get all the best sounds from the mini moog. I said, yeah, but I got this guy coming in from LA with a Fairlight. Now, the Fairlight was a dominating instrument on Peter Gabriel's Shock the Monkey, which I heard in London when I was recording with the trio. And I was blown away. I said, I got to find out who's the rep for Fairlight. So I had the guy fly in to Caribou, Denver airport. And he comes up with the Fairlight, and Jan said, no. I said, just check it out, man. The sounds are mind-blowing. He goes, no, I get everything. 3 days in, he starts moving closer to it. Eventually, he fell in love with it. And it's all over that record, Scenario. I don't know if you ever heard Scenario.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Okay. That record is chock full of Fairlight and got Jan the writing spot on Miami Vice. Which you hear is that's Fairlight because of me.
Fantastic. That started his career, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have been a whole different story.
Well, look, he would have been fine without it, right?
Sure,
but he got the soundtrack because of the Fairlight, finally using the Fairlight on my record. So the producers of Miami Vice heard my record, this song in particular called Sequencer, which we made a video and everything on that. It was, they heard that and said, we got to get the guy to program that. That's how we got that.
My great friend Malcolm Bruce, who's Jack Bruce's son, he asked me to ask you about Mandoki Soulmates, because Jack Bruce was involved in that.
Yeah.
And he just said, did you enjoy the process?
Well,
you met your wife through it, so that was one big plus.
And Mandoki doesn't let me forget it. All because of him. I met my wife. Well, it's true to a degree. I mean, yeah, of course. She was sent there to
she was a journalist, wasn't she?
Cover the show.
Yeah, is a journalist.
And it was the party afterwards where I met Stephanie, and it was a life-changing moment. It was phenomenal. But Mandoki, like I said, he has the gift of putting people together. He's very highly social in all areas of, major industries. He knows old CEOs. He knows, what's her name from the car company? Six.
Yeah.
He knows she's like 110. They're like friends, He knows Oraban very well. And he gets these huge contributions of money to be, because he basically rattles off a list of the names that he says are in his band, Soulmates.
Right, sure.
And they say, "Oh wow, you can get Randy Brecker and Aldi Meola. What? Oh, and you have
Steve Lukather and
at one time Steve Lukather, you Jack Bruce,
Ian Anderson, I think.
Ian Anderson, many times, and you can get Chaka Khan." And, he goes, they're all going to be there. Even if they're not going to be there, because they weren't always there, he would rattle off that list. And people from like Audi or Mercedes or Oraban, who was a big fan of my music, for sure, said, "Oh, man, of course, we'd love to be involved with that. How much? Yeah, sure, 500,000. Okay, yeah, no problem." So this guy just knew how to manipulate and get it.
Amazing. So you met Stephanie, which is a wonderful thing, and which kind of leads me on to, you love cooking as a fun thing. You're into cooking?
Well, yeah. And how it happened was, I'm a foodie. I mean, I just. From the early years of growing up with my parents and my mother,
You're Italian. You make the best food.
The Napolitan style of cooking, and us going to the best restaurants and knowing a lot about the best food. I mean, because let's face it, Italian food is the best food by far. And so I just know what tastes good. I know what is good of that cuisine. So if you know that, that's the first important part, because you can't just learn how to cook and not know if it's good when you taste it.
Sure.
When I taste it, I know, it needs a little bit more of this, a little bit of that, I know that realm very well. So to make a long story short, it was the COVID year and it was the summertime, and I had a couple of friends over because nobody was doing anything because of COVID. So they were sitting on the deck outside, and I said to Stephanie, who's also a phenomenal cook, really phenomenal, and I said, Steph, let me prepare the first course. I'm going to make a pasta dish that's going to blow them away. They never had anything, and no one's had anything quite like this. So she goes, really? I said, yeah. Let me. We had a few glasses of wine. It's really feeling good. And while I'm preparing this thing over the oven, I said to Steph, hey, while you're at it, go live stream. Live stream was like a really big thing back then.
Sure, of course.
We did a lot of things in the studio, live stream, because people couldn't move. Everybody was home. So she goes, you really want it? I said, yeah, go live stream. So she's filming me, and I'm like looking at the camera. I go, people are like writing in constantly, and they go, oh my God, Aldo Meola, he cooks too, you know. And so I just joked. I looked at the phone, and she was up like high, and I go, and if you want, you can come here. I'll cook for you in person. I was only joking.
Sure.
And then later that night, both of us, we read all the comments. I mean, from all over the world. And there were a number of them that were like, well, what do we have to do? I mean, and I said, what do we have to do? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We could turn this into something.
Something fun as well.
Imagine we charge, but what they get is a gourmet dinner starting with all the Italian appetizers you can think of. And then they get to sit across from me at this median that we have in our kitchen. And it gives them an opportunity to ask every question and talk about, you know, what it was growing up with my music and whatever they want to talk about.
Sure.
And then move on to the first course, which I prepare, and they watch me prepare it. All the time asking questions, drinking. We have every kind of champagne, wine. And the place is, because of Stephanie, decored like immaculately, amazingly. The whole house, actually.
Do you play music when you're cooking?
No, we play in the background, you know, selections, of course, of a lot of my stuff. And then, you know, she prepares the second course, which is either a bronzino or a veal chop, but like of the highest quality. And then we follow it, all these Italian pastries from the South, like sfogliatelle and cannolis and fruit and all kinds of things. It's just a massive dinner. And the one that I cook that I might be doing here as well is cavatelli or pacchetti, which is a very southern pasta.
Fantastic.
And the way I make it is with the ingredients I use, it really makes it something that I'm definitely positive they've never had anything like it.
Is that your signature dish?
It is my signature dish, yeah. Kind of like a spin-off of my mother's recipe.
Right.
You know, a spin-off, but more of my own ingredients. And so we put it out there. That, okay, we have 3 different packages. Stephanie made up this 3 different packages. There's one price that provides dinner, another price that provides dinner plus a concert, or like a intimate, private thing in my studio, and where I play a whole hour and a half to 2 hours, you know, and
amazing.
Yeah, and then offer a lesson or a jam, which hardly ever. They're usually after the performance. They're spent because they're having after dinner drinks and everything. So, you know, except for the first guy, he said, the first guy that came from Detroit, and it was on the hottest day in the summer. It must have been 110 degrees. It was Fahrenheit. It was so. He came. He was completely drenched. He came by himself, and I said, "Man, you got to go up to the guest room. I mean, you must
lie down
right
for a
now.
second. Yeah.
Take a shower, okay?" He goes, "Oh, thank you. Yeah, good, go." Right. You know, and that was the first guy, and then, you know, he had dinner. He asked all the questions. It was really, he loved it, and at the end he goes, "Now I'd like to jam." I said, "Oh, well, great. All right, pick a guitar. I have all my guitars out." He goes, "Oh, no. I don't want to play a guitar." I said, "Well, what do you mean? What are you going to play?" He goes, "I brought a cowbell." You put a cowbell. I look at Steph.
Use the room, use the space.
He goes, I just want to be able to say I jam with Al Di Meola.
Sounds like
And
Saturday
I look
Night
back at
Live.
Steph and I go, and I'm thinking, you know what? This guy just paid serious money. He could take out a kazoo. He could take out anything he
You didn't
wants.
play Don't Fear the Reaper, did you? No.
Oh, that's funny. The guy had zero rhythm. I mean, I tried to play, but everything was off the time. He had no weight. He had no sense of timing. And I just look again back at Steph and I go, you know what? He just paid a lot of money. I don't care. It was so enjoyable.
Maybe it was postmodern, you know?
Yeah. So when we were done, you know, and he left, we look at one another and go, this was a lot of fun. I didn't have to pack to go to the airport. I didn't have to pay commissions. I didn't have to pay a band. I didn't have to leave home. I sleep in my bed tonight. Do you think we could do this again? Oh man, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever get a second one. I don't know. This was a fluke. Well, we got a second one. And we got a third one. And now we're up to 60.
Wow. Do you ever watch cooking shows on the TV?
Sure.
Because it's like a lot of my friends are, you know, musicians are mad into cooking as well. It's a big thing, you know. Cooking is, you know, cooking shows are huge.
No, we blow them away. I mean, everyone that's come to the house is like knocked out with what we serve, you know.
Lastly,
I mean, even to the point where, you know, very few of them have had Bronzino.
Wow.
Or very few have had a veal chop like the stick.
Right.
You know, they're not necessarily foodies, you know, really into food, or wherever they eat is certainly not that level.
I was watching that movie recently about the Monas in that restaurant in New York that had the Monas, like those, you know, traditional Italian cooking. Have you seen that film? It's amazing. But it's based on a true story.
Oh yeah, Monas?
Yeah. And where they, you know, they start a restaurant together, and it's amazing. You know, it's like an amazing documentary about sort of, you know, traditional Italian cooking, which to me is the best form of cooking.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
There's nothing like it. But I was saying to you earlier on, you should check out the Bear.
It works, series. You know, because, you know, I'm from an Italian background, serving Italian food. This would not work being Jewish, serving gefilte fish. And charge what we charge. Let's face it. You know.
Well, you guys have it locked down. I mean, Italian food. If you had to live on one food for the rest of your life, let's be honest. For most people, for me anyway, it would be Italian food.
For most people, it's the number one choice.
My wife loves Italian
I happen
food.
to love Austrian and German food, personally, and certain French food. I have a wide palate. I love Asian food and everything, but it works best with Italian food, and the whole image of the fact that I come from an Italian background. You know?
Of course. And lastly, before we finish up, Al, I think we should talk about the vinyl player again, because I am fascinated by it. And so the process of putting this together with the development of it, were you very much involved in the development, the actual technically how it sounded? Did you listen to it and say, I like this, I don't like this? And...
No, not really. I mean, it's they are already high quality turntables and sound producing company, clearaudio. They're very well established, and it was really the design of the turntable and you know, I picked some of the, you know, I was really involved with the design with them.
Sure. Did you play your own albums on it to see how they sounded?
Yeah, they sound phenomenal. Phenomenal.
And, I mean, sort of, did you...
I mean, I'm not even, you know, I have to readjust to vinyl again. You know, I had to do that.
Yeah.
With, you know, being involved with this project, because I tour so much, and, you know, the days of carrying a big bag full of cassettes, unraveling, and we get the pencil.
Yeah, sure.
You know, like a million cassettes.
Getting stuck in the car.
I never carried a camera because I was loaded with cassettes. So to have everything on a cell phone became really cool. I got my whole discography on there of many, many different artists and everything. It's the convenience factor, but I started getting used to that compressed MP3 sound that I forgot
How
I
brilliant
really forgot how
vinyl sounds.
great vinyl is. So there is a comeback to some degree.
Oh, it does sound better. There's no doubt about it. And even, but you know, it depends on how it's cut. Because I heard a Bob Marley record recently that there was hardly any bass on it. I mean, how can you have a Bob Marley record without bass on it? Because it was badly cut. And but when you get a well cut record,
Yeah.
and also, especially a lot of the older vinyls were the quality of the vinyl was actually better.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, the later vinyls, like the quality of the actual vinyl wasn't as good. So there's a lot of factors in play to make vinyl sound great. But when you get it right, there's nothing like it. It's the best sound in the world, even with the slight little crackle is wonderful. And you know, for just the whole ritual of sitting down with your wife with a glass of wine and some food and, oh, I remember this record. And also just putting it on and leaving it on. You know, you don't skip tracks. You just listen to the whole record. 'Cause it's on there. You may as well listen to it.
Well, since the days of cassettes, you know, I drifted away from turntables. So it's now, you know, come back full circle again, and I have to set up a whole new system. So, and dust off those records that I have in my basement, you know. That's still an ongoing project.
So what would you think is unique about this one compared to, say, others of its price range?
It's pretty much the design, but the quality of the needle for sure is
The stylus, yeah.
far superior than the record players that I grew up with, like the Garage turntables, where Garage was really a popular name at the time. You know, you'd have to get that like quarter out or a dime and put it on top of the needle because you needed a little bit more weight. Yeah.
So do the clear audio guys really listen to your kind of feedback about sort of how it should sound? Because I think it is a good chemistry between you and them. Your high standards of music and their high standards of audio. Because as you said earlier on at the start of the podcast, I mean,
they're selling $100,000 turntables. Just and the difference between whatever this is, 35 to 4,000. I don't hear that much of a difference. I'm not an audiophile in that regard. Like a lot of the people that came to that high-end audio convention in Munich, where I was the grand whatever. What would you call it?
Testimonial.
Huh?
Testimonial.
Now, what was I?
the host.
Yeah, you were the testimonial of it. So you.
No. There was a term for the. I was the grand marshal kind of thing of the whole thing. I mean, the advertising over in Munich and at the airport and in train stations. I've never seen so much advertising in my posters for this high-end thing. But people there were the ones that you could say are audiophiles and spend $250,000 for a turntable and hear that 3% difference. You know, I'm like, it's not me. You know, but
I think what's wonderful about it is the ritual.
Yeah.
You know, of just
The ritual
stopping,
is phenomenal.
taking time,
Love it.
listening to the whole, as I said, the record, playing one side, playing the other, sitting down, just
I
being
built
in the
a whole
moment.
giant bookshelf in my house with the idea I'm going to get those records out and load them in there and having them right in front of my face because I miss it. I miss having the records visible.
But I think it's a huge new resurgence of vinyl, obviously, because I think it's the fact of something physical, something, you know, that you can, you know, reading the credits. I know it's a cliche, but it is true. It is a wonderful thing. You know, my wife and I sometimes, because again, I'm not going to lie, we stream music in the house all the time. I've got Sonos speakers everywhere and I just tell, you know, Alexa to play whatever. And I you know, listen to a lot of music that way. I digest it that way. But sometimes a Friday night, we'll get a bottle of wine out. We'll just take out the vinyl and old records that we had since we were kids. And there is something magical about it. It's just the whole, and getting friends around sometimes, they're really intrigued as well. Oh my God, it's a whole night. People just coming out and taking records out and playing them and being much more engaged with the process and the music than they ever would be with streaming. So I think it's worth the effort. Yeah. But as you said, people are spending fortunes on these setups.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are spending? What is it they're getting out of spending that amount of money?
I don't know. I mean, it's like they had room after room of, you know, not just record players that were over $100,000, but they had speakers that were, you know, massive, these massive speakers that I can't see me personally going that way. You know, you can really enjoy smaller speakers, very high quality today, but they had those kind of giant speakers that I. But I remember a time, you know, in my early 20s, in my teen years, early 20s, mid 20s, where I would go to stores and spend hours A-Bing speakers. And we were critical about every little aspect of sound. And then the years of touring and the convenience of cassettes had me drift away from that. But yeah, it's... I'm glad that there's some return to it, to some degree. But yeah, I miss the days of going to a record store and going through the bins and picking out oh man, or waiting for records to come in. I would be at that store waiting for Tommy to come in from The Who.
Yeah,
I bought, one of the first records.
Oh, it was a great time.
Yeah, it's still a great record, and you would just stare at this record, not for an hour, but for a month or two or three.
Yeah, sure.
Just look at everything. There was a romance to it.
I think there was, sometimes they were the only photographs you would see of the artist. I've always believed in that no mystique, big mistake kind of thing. It was the mystique of if it was the Beatles or Bowie, or you'd see 2 or 3 pictures of them in the whole year.
Blues.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was just an amazing era that is gone.
Yeah, it's never
it can't
coming back.
be repeated. No. And
it was the golden age of
it was a golden age.
Yeah.
And, luckily I caught, the mid 70s wasn't so bad, through the beginning of the 80s. That was also part of still the glory, period of the record industry.
Just to finish up, Al, it'd be amazing if you could play something off your new album. Have you got a piece that would work here just on the acoustic, just to finish off the podcast?
It may be.
If something off that record would be amazing.
Oh. One piece in particular that my daughter, who at the time was just a very, very young little girl, and we took her to see the Nutcracker Suite, and she was captivated by the music and the ballerinas, and I think she was somewhere between 3 and 4 years old, and she came down to say goodnight, and she was doing her little attempt at being a ballerina. And I'm in the studio, and I was writing
Anna,
on
your
my
daughter,
board.
is it? Is that Anna, your daughter?
Ava.
Ava, sorry, Ava.
Yeah. And Ava was, I was just watching her in amazement, and it was just one of those tender moments, and as I was watching, I just automatically played something I've never played before. So something at 5/4. And she had a doll in her hands. And she was sashaying across the room. And I went, Eva loves her dolls. She's going to sleep tonight. I sang it again, over and over. With that, under that. guitar came later, of course. And I just loved the theme, you know. So she went to bed, and I said, wait a minute. Dad, I gotta write that out. I was really almost going to just move back to what I was doing before she came down. I said, no, there's something about that melody. It's, even though it's like a nursery rhyme, but it's so cool Italian. Over the 5/4. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not very Italian to me.
Yeah.
Melody.
That out, and maybe right after she went to sleep, and I said, wow, this is so kind of aesthetically captivating. Should I take it somewhere or just keep it like that? No, I have to expand it. My mind is like, I gotta find another movement, classical.
Gorgeous.
Then I don't know where I went next. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, 5/4.
It's fantastic.
So it's the album has a lot of very intricate,
evocative, nearly. Yeah, evocative, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of melody and everything, but there's also pieces of... But some very, you might say, kind of inspired by, Towner and stuff like that, pieces that went very deep, And, but that one that I wrote with Ava in mind, which is called Ava's Dance in the Moonlight, has that unmistakable melody that is the main theme,
And has an optimism about it as well. It's kind of optimistic sounding.
This is called Fandango. So I'll have this part play a melody over that. What I do is I go to my voice memo and I'll play that. Then I'll play it back. Mm-hmm. Right? I used to use multi-track to do it. Now I just do it simplistic. So I go right to the voice memo and I'll play something like that. And it'll play back, and against it. All the while that I'm playing these harmonies, I'm playing a melody against it, right?
Sure, of course. It's beautiful, man.
So there's like the ingredients making like an incredible dish of pasta or whatever it is that I'm cooking. It's the ingredients. And I like to have a balance of of great melody and harmony and syncopation and melody. Otherwise, it's imbalanced. You know?
I think that's the story of your life, really, of your career, of the amazing
I've had
music
really
you've
great
made.
influences, and I really had a great foundation from my first teacher being the jazz head, but he also loved the Beatles. He was a straight ahead jazz guy with a big jazz body guitar, but he recognized the harmonic beauty of Here, There, and Everywhere and Michelle, and he would write them out at the same time he's showing me all of these jazz standards. So I was satisfied, and at the same time I was getting a little jazz education, you know, whether I liked it or not.
Right, sure.
And then having the proximity to New York City right there. I mean, literally getting on a bus and going to the GW Bridge, just taking the subway all the way down to the Village. The Village was just loaded with music. All the hippies, you can imagine, fringe jackets, incense in the air. It was wild. And then that walk down 8th Street past Electric Lady Studios to get to the Fillmore East, where any night of the week it was either Jethro Tull, Traffic, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Santana, Jimi Hendrix. It was a magic time. So, and you go home from any one of those shows just bursting with inspiration.
A huge part of your education. A huge part of your education.
Major part. Most important part.
To see how it was moving people in real time at a show.
Most important part, you know. And, yeah. And then, you know, I had very passionate parents. They were downstairs and, you know, and then you could hear them down there just going at it. And
Well, they're Italian.
and I was, yeah, Italian. You know, so
Shout a
turn
lot.
up the music, you know what I mean? And,
Drown them out.
and I had a stereo blasting up there, and I said, they tried to call me for dinner, and I would never hear it, so I had this light switch, and I tied a rope around the switch, and the rope went all the way down. If they needed me, they would yank on the, and the lights would go off. I said, oh, it must be dinner time.
Well, you were practicing 8 hours a day, weren't you, or something when you were a kid?
At Berkeley.
Oh, at Berkeley, but not at home. You were.
Yeah, no, at home, of course, but Berkeley, I was like, we had 3 guys in a dorm room, one room. So one guy had the room, one guy had the bathroom, which is really the best place,
yeah.
and I had the closet. It was a tiny little closet, but enough for a guitar. And my feeling was just, you know, I wanted to make it when I'm young.
Right.
I was like driven, and Return to Forever is my favorite band. And so with the Beatles, forget about it, right? But Return to Forever, I saw a spot. I saw a moment where I called my friend and I said, man, I'd love to play. I didn't say to him, try to get me in that band. I just said, boy, I'd love to have that, because I had a Les Paul at the time. And I said, man, I'd love to play with that band, man. Wow, that would be a dream. I never thought he was going to do what he did.
But it was meant to be, Al. It was all meant to be.
There's a God. There's a higher power. I met my wife. There's a higher power. I mean, the best 10 years of my life, for sure. Like, no comparison to any other time in my life, okay? I met Paul McCartney. It was like meeting God. It was, oh my God. In the middle of making a tribute record of his music. We were neighbors.
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love if you could let us know by liking, commenting, or by sharing. Thanks so much. Yeah, but your contribution to music now is in, you know, it's there forever. It's there for all time. And I think that's a wonderful thing, because you deserve all the accolades you've ever had.
And I'm hard on myself. I am. I'm hard on myself. I go through periods of, it's tough. And I guess that's important too, because it keeps me wanting to be better. You know, I don't ever feel like I'm there. I mean, I was happy with last night. I was happy with some of the shows, but generally I'm pretty tough on myself.
Yeah, but great art comes out of struggle. I think that
Yeah,
internal
no,
struggle.
there's a-
Without
yeah.
that, it's pretty dry.
Without pain, we don't have progress.
Without pain, we don't have progress. On that note, Al, I think, thank you so much.
You got
It
it.
was amazing.
It was a wonderful
Thank you
interview.
So good, man. Thank you
I've
so
done
much.
a lot of interviews, but this one ranks.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. That
Absolutely.
means a lot to me.